Good morning, everybody. It's really good to be able to share a few thoughts with you today. We're certainly living in strange and challenging times, and I'm sure that most of you, like me, have had moments when you have a bit of a wobble. So today I'd like to talk about word, worship, and a wasp. Brian spoke a couple of Sundays ago about reclaiming the hour, spending time with God first thing in the morning before you do anything else. And I must admit that over this time, my routine has changed. So before COVID started, in the morning, I would have a cup of coffee, I'd listen to the radio while I came to, and then at some point, I would have a quiet time, I'd read my Bible and pray. But since March, I've not been doing that. I've still got my coffee to wake me up, but I now read a Bible in 1 year, or Lectio 365, and I'm absolutely amazed yet again how much God speaks to me, to my exact situation or something that's on my mind. And I've been able to give whatever it is over to him at the start of the day. That's been a really great thing to be able to do. And it's a bit like, as it says in Psalm 1, that we're like trees planted by a stream, and our roots go down and dig deep with the water that's the Holy Spirit. The other thing that struck me as I've been reading, especially some of the Old Testament passages, is that how many of the worship songs that we sing are based on passages in the Bible. Last week, when I was reading the book of James, I came across this: every good and perfect gift is from above, comes down from the Father of the heavenly lights. And that immediately made me think of a song that I absolutely love. And so I did what we all do now. I Googled and I found this particular video on YouTube. And it's Andy Park's Vineyard Worship. And I played this. It was absolutely amazing. It was the song with the words, but interspersed in the words over the instrumental were the most encouraging and uplifting associated scriptures. And it's absolutely incredible that we have access to such amazing stuff on our phones. So as I listened to that song, I was reminded that God doesn't change. He has my back. I can trust him, and lots of other stuff as well. And I ended up just praising God for everything that he's given me, even in these difficult times. When I read in the morning, even if a song doesn't come to mind, I always Google and see what I can find, a song to kind of set me up for the day, if you like. And a few weeks ago, I was feeling a bit down. I had various things going around in my mind, and I was a bit troubled and a bit just missing people. You know how it is. So I did find a song and I listened to it. I think it was probably a Bethel song. And as often, if you play a video on YouTube, when that particular video comes to an end, it says that there's something else coming up. And so this particular song popped up, and I thought, well, I'm going to listen to that as well. And the song was the song Waymaker, which I'm sure you know. If you don't, then Google it and listen to it. It's an incredible song. And this video lasted for nearly half an hour, just singing this one song. So the worship leader sang a verse, and then he went back into that verse. There was a bit of an instrumental. He went back into a different part of the song, into the bridge. There was a time when nobody was singing. There was some spontaneous worship. And it was incredible. And I sometimes think it's a bit weird watching a band worship. But as I watched, what I found was that I was being drawn into this song, and I was being impacted by the power and the truth of the words that were being sung in this song. So words like, even when I don't see it, you're working, really spoke to me about God being there. And at the end of this video, or towards the end of it, a different worship leader came forward and she said this, and it made such an impression on me that I wrote it down. This is what it was. Sometimes, she said, we sing because we're sure. Other times we sing until we know. And that's what had happened to me. I wasn't feeling brilliant, but by the end of this song and being drawn into this worship, I was sure of the truth of who God is and what he means to me. So this was a time for me to press in, to persevere, just to keep going. To paraphrase another psalm, why am I feeling so miserable and downhearted and fed up? And yet I will praise you, God. Matt Redman in another song talks about there being pain in the offering. And sometimes that's just the way it is. So that's the word and worship. What about the Wasp? Well, the other day I went to bed. I wasn't feeling particularly well. And as I got up to the landing, I heard this noise. And I looked up and there was an absolutely enormous wasp. Because it had no business even being alive in November, it was a bit woozy. You've probably all seen these wasps. They look as if they're drunk. And it had this horrible buzzing noise. It was really, it just wasn't nice at all. And it was quite threatening. And I'm not afraid of wasps, but I don't like them. I certainly don't like them in my bedroom. And I really thought, this wasp's coming for me. And so I thought I need to get rid of it. So I went into the bedroom and tried to find something I could swat it with. And I found a book. And when I got back to the landing, it wasn't there. I couldn't see it anywhere. I looked around, I looked in the other rooms, and it just wasn't there. So I went to bed, I settled down, and I was just dropping off to sleep when bzzz, I heard this wasp. And I got up again, but by the time I got there, it had disappeared. And eventually I went to sleep, forgot about the wasp, went to sleep, and actually I've not seen it since. It's probably just done a decent thing and died somewhere. So the next day I was at home and I was just mulling stuff over in my head. There were a couple of things that I was a bit concerned about. I was getting a bit worried and unsettled. And suddenly, I just had one of those moments when word came into my head, or several words actually. And the words were, swat that wasp, which is rather strange. But sometimes I have thoughts and fears buzzing around in my head. And sometimes they seem to come from nowhere. But what they do, they make us fearful, they unsettle us, and they actually draw our minds away from God, or that's what I find anyway. And, God says an awful lot about who he is, who we are in him, the state of the world, and all sorts of stuff like that. And whatever the devil wants to use, he will try and rob us of our certainty and our faith in God. I recently read that the words "do not fear" appear 365 times in the Bible. I haven't counted them, but I'll believe that that's true. And sometimes, we just need to swat the fears that come into our head and remind ourselves of God's promises, and we choose to worship. And finally, we need each other. We really do need each other. We are responsible, I am responsible for the choices that I make. But we are told to support one another, to encourage one another, and to pray for one another. Thank God for WhatsApp groups. And I know there are lots of them within the church. just encouraging one another. I thank God for every single person who rings me to make sure I'm okay, who sends me a verse, who sends me a song or a funny picture. And it's just absolutely brilliant to be part of this church community. And my prayer is that we will use what we have from our relationship with God to reach out to others who don't know Jesus, as well as supporting each other. So be blessed today. Remember to swat those fears, those little fears that come like wasps and rob us of our peace. And have a great day. Bye-bye.